In this lesson, we want to look more at some of these built-in directives. And as you can see from the Vue JS API here, we've got vText, which we've already looked at, so how we can output vText. So we can output it as the message there. So instead of doing those curly brackets, we could do vText message. And same thing as what we were doing earlier, where we had these curly brackets and we were passing through a value from the data. So if data had a value of hello world, we would pass that through in this type of format. So just going to take a quick refresh here, and we see that we're outputting hello world. So just as it's indicated here, we can do vText message, and that will actually update the content. And this is just using the directive, so vText message. And close up that div, and we'll take a look at that now. So just see that it actually does the exact same thing. And when we do an inspect of that element, we can see that the div, it's the same thing. All it's done is move that text in there. So we've looked at that already. We've looked at vText, we've got vHTML. So it works the same way as the triple curly brackets. If we want to show that HTML content within our HTML element. We've got to look at, this time we're going to look at vIf, and vIf allows us to do some additional conditions there to within our HTML content. And in order to add that in, all we have to do is we're actually adding it right within our HTML. So we've got the option, so maybe I can say, so I'm going to just create an output, and I'll just do false there. And we'll apply our conditions over here. So we're going to create our element, and this element is going to be view_if, and it's going to check the value of output. So if output is true, then it's going to output yes, it's here. And we can also add another element, and we can do a vElse. So this is just like those if-else conditions. So if it's met, then it does this. And if else, so we don't need that part of it. So all we need to do is indicate vElse and no, not there. So let's see what happens now when we output it. So let's refresh it. No, not there, because the output is false. So if I was to go and update this to be true, let's check this out, and we see that the value is there. And this is how we can apply conditions. We also have a bunch more here, directives that are really cool. So we've got show as well, and show is going to be kind of similar to the if, but we can actually show in it. What it does is it toggles the CSS display property. So we can either show if we want to see if the condition is true. So I'm going to apply that to another div here, and I'm going to do vShow. And this is another built-in directive. And we're going to check to see if output. And basically, if output is true, and I'll do another vShow, and this time I'm going to use the exclamation mark to see if vShow is not true, then it's going to say is not true. So let's take a look at that and refresh it, and we see that it is true because it is true, and when we set it to false, then we should get the opposite. So refresh it, not true, and not there. And as we can see, this is all nicely and neatly presented within our HTML content, and there isn't really much happening within the JavaScript, although we've just brought in the Vue object, and it's able to interact with that content just by adding in these customized directives. Now there's a few other ones listed here. So we've looked at the v_for, so this allows us to list out all the items. We looked at the vModel, how we can then model and create that two-way data binding with input forms by modeling out those parameters. And in the next lesson, we're going to look at some really cool stuff that we can do with Vue on. And this allows us to add event listeners, because this is something that's kind of lacking here. So if I had a way to maybe toggle this output with a clickable button, it would make things much easier than having to flip back and forth. So that's coming up in the next lesson, and I'll show you how we can add in a click button here in order to toggle that output. So that's coming up in the next lesson.